What's going on, workforce? Brian here, and today we have another interview from Yoshi-P, this one with MMORPG.com. In it, he talks about a lot of little interesting things, some things we know, and some things he clarifies, which I think is really important. But without further ado, let's go ahead and do this thing. So with all interviews, it's important you guys go and give some love to the original source. So check the description below. You're going to find the link there. You can get all the details from the interview itself. It's really actually well done, but I wanted to give my highlights and thoughts on some key points that, come up in the interview. So namely, that's like first the Relic Weapons. The only way you're going to actually be able to upgrade those or increase their power or whatever is in the land of Eureka. Now, he goes on to talk about Eureka and that it's going to be very different from the diadem. And for me, I'm still like, what does that even mean? I think it's important that he's trying to, kind of separate or distinguish it different, because the diadem, it is what it is. It's not active currently, content in the game. And hopefully we're going to see it kind of, propel itself in a positive way here soon enough. But they didn't really kind of clarify. So we're going to probably have to wait till a live letter before they show that off sometime for 4.2. We're all still also hoping that it's still 4.2 that we're going to see this, forbidden land of Eureka. They also talk about gear, because then the idea that, we have had it confirmed that Eureka, there's going to be Relic Armor. And I'm assuming that the weapon and the armor are going to only be powered up in this world, and how it's, however it's different. And they say there's a lot of different systems when it comes to Eureka itself. So, you know what? I'm not going to get my hopes up, but the hype is kind of building for me. But then again, like on the gear specific stuff, he knows that players, are requesting set bonuses and, various, custom stats for gear, and they've done it, with Relic Weapons and some of that rare gear. But he feels that he doesn't have any plans to really kind of bring in set bonuses and specialized custom stats for gear. And personally, the set bonuses thing's a little bit of a, kind of a bummer, because it's that if you equip all this gear, you're going to end up having, oh, this has a little extra stat, a little bonus for the entire set itself. Maybe something, I think they would be, because they talked about it as a part of like raids and getting different gear sets, in the past. So I'm guessing they're still saying no or not on the fence. But then he talks again about the custom stats piece, as I stutter through that sentence. Talking about kind of, the reason why they don't want to do that is that MMORPGs are complex enough. And so that, it gives 3 reasons for it not, wanting to be that way. New players, he doesn't want to overcomplicate the systems. The game life balance, he wants people to be able to kind of take breaks and enjoy life, especially in between patches whenever they're not actively playing. And 3, balancing fights, keeping the stats the way they are and not allowing for much, flexibility or customization, allows them to do things like the Ultimate Coil Bahamut much easier, because they know, like, hey, here's the baseline, here's the basic place where stats exist. And then he goes in to explain that really, if they did allow a lot of customization, you would end up seeing, players who would find the best in slot and, build, and then everybody would just go to that anyway. And so basically they're doing that math for you, and thus not giving, you an option to make, I guess, a bad choice. And we saw that with the removal of, player stats on level, which I agreed with, because, it wasn't like the game directed you to put the stats into the right one. It only gave you the option to not. And thus, a lot of people were like, we'll just always drop it here. So even if there was the illusion of customization, it really wasn't any kind of form of customization itself. Then he also, tying this into Eureka, he also then goes and hints that the customization the players have been asking for is going to be in the land of Eureka, and that they're going to be looking forward to getting feedback from everybody when that day comes. So again, that hype is starting to build for Eureka, even though I feel like we're at least going to be a little bit off. So then the interview goes on to talk about like open world, that the fields are beautiful, they have these areas, but pretty much everybody just kind of queues up at their house and going into the duty finder. And I know I'm specifically guilty of that. The Beastman tribes for the Kojin are nice because they get me out and about in the world, and I really appreciate it because it is such a beautiful world. And so they're talking about, and they're kind of playing around with ideas on how to add stuff to the open world content that will be repeatable and enjoyable for players, because they talk about like Odin and some of these other fights, that once you kind of get the thing that you're after from that, that content, there's really not a lot of, need or want to go do it again. And so trying to find ways to make some of this stuff more repeatable and usable in the long run. He goes on in the interview to talk about also Deep Dungeon, and it seems like it might be a little while off. I know we were all kind of hoping for 4.1 or 4.2, but it looks like it's going to be at least until sometime before 5.0. So sometime before the next expansion that we're going to see the next Deep Dungeon. I think that's fine. Take your time. They say it's not a sequel to the Palace of the Dead. This is going to be its own thing. It's got its own systems. It's really quite interesting. I'm very excited to see and go hands-on with it when that day comes. So then the question talks about, like, hey, we're getting less dungeons per patch. What are we getting for it? And that's one of the things I know we've talked about on Aetheryte Radio. Like, what is the trade-off here? And so they talk about that, they've been able to dedicate more time to the main scenario. So the ending fight of like 4.1 with Lakshmi is an example of that extra resources. The glamour system for 4.2, the overhaul for that system, is an example of getting one less dungeon. And so I know a lot of people will be like, oh, endgame is, or glamour's the true endgame. But then he goes on to talk about the ultimate coil Bahamut, and that there is more stuff that is coming because of that freed up resource. So there's been a lot of effort and a lot of breathing room that's given them to be able to focus in on these other systems. And so that leads me to go and say, like, man, the amount of effort it takes, I guess, to make a dungeon is probably substantial. It's like, we're like, oh yeah, we get this and this is what's expected. But it seems that it might have been a substantial resource drain to be able to create that. So obviously 4.2 we're going to get 2 dungeons, and then 4.3 we get 1. So I'm happy that they're being able to kind of balance that out a little bit better personally. I'm still waiting for that kind of that real, I guess, leverage of that power. Like, oh, this is, this was the trade-off we got. So it sounds like there's stuff in the works. I'm looking forward to seeing what that is. And, it is what it is, 4.1, it's a good patch. It's, content rich for the most part, but I'm really excited for the future. It sounds like there's some big stuff in the works. I can't wait to go hands-on with it. So I did say that they talked about the 4.2 glamour system overhaul. This is going to be big. It's he said it would take like an hour to highlight these changes, so expect it to be a part of a live letter. And that's great, because I'm hoping for either a glamour book or some kind of system in which that the glamour system is, I guess, better than it is right now. Carrying all these extra sets seems a little bit odd. It would be nice to be able to have it just unlocked, and then once you have it, you can utilize it easily, or build out, glamour gear sets where you can easily just say, hey, I want my set to look like this, and then you can kind of have that. Because as you equip gear, sometimes it just becomes an annoying or an annoyance. So I usually wait until I'm at like that cap, because I'm like, my gear changes so frequently as you level. It's, there's not a lot of value in it, and I don't think the leveling gear looks that good personally. So it is what it is. So then they talk about they're considering the adventure squads at being able to bring them in the fields, but while they're doing that, they're definitely adding in new dungeons and trying to do more customizable AI for the adventure squads. This is great. I know they talked about having like the Gambit system in Final Fantasy XIV, and this was a while ago. So I'm assuming that's what he means by more customizable AI, and I would love it. I'd love to see Gambits. I'd love to see more of that that feature being brought in, and be able to take these guys out in the field with me. I think would be hugely satisfying and exciting, especially as you relate that again to open world content. My Chocobo is fine, but I would rather adventure out there with that tank healer DPS, that real kind of build, and then be able to bring them along with my friends. So like if we were doing maps, so to say, and then, okay, well, we need 2 more people. Okay, let's bring out, a squadron or something like that. There is obviously a balance you're going to have to take, because sometimes it is nice to be able to recruit like human beings and be able to play with each other. I mean, it is an online game after all, but at the end of the day, sometimes it'd be like, okay, we're going to go with the 2 of us. Let's bring our squads. Let's level them up a little bit, and let's have some fun. Just the 2 of us, or the 3 of us. Where you're working with kind of small group of close-knit friends as well. So there's benefits. We can always debate on those benefits themselves. And so then he tries to get at the end of the interview more information about maybe how they're going to do 4.2 housing distribution, but right now they're not ready to talk about it. So that is the interview in a nutshell. Again, highly recommend you guys go check out it. Give it a good read. It's only 3 pages. It's pretty actually condensed and shortened, so almost to the point where you probably could have read through it while watching this video. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this interview, on anything related to Final Fantasy XIV. And, you know, sound off in the comments below. Let's have those conversations. What are you most excited about for 4.2? What are you looking forward to regarding the next Ultimate? What boss do you think it's going to be? Does Eureka excite you, or does it have you on the fence where, you know, the diadem didn't do anything for you? So anyway, for Work to Game, my name's Brian. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next. But until then, I hope you have a fantastic week, and take care.
Whoa! Thank you so much for watching. There should be another video like over here. Or there! Or a vlog somewhere around here! And the subscribe button is below with the contact info! Here we go!